Everyone, this is Dr. Clark in the Center for Weight Loss Success. Tonight on Losing Weight USA, we're going to talk about intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is not an eating plan, it's a not eating plan. So we need to talk about can it be helpful? Are there potential weight loss benefits? Are there potential just overall health benefits? We'll get into all that, try to answer most of your questions. Since this is a relatively short webinar, there's no way I can talk about this thing in too much detail. I usually mention it once or twice just about every single webinar that I do, but we'll get the high points here if you want to call it that. All right, here's the official welcome. Welcome to Losing Weight USA, real-time answers to your weight loss questions, as well as some of the latest research. A little bit of expert advice gives you access not only to me, but you should be receiving the health tips and recipes via the membership portal. Each webinar will last about 30 minutes or so. If you have questions, just type them into the chat box as we go. We'll get to them at the end as time permits, and typically we'll make time permit. If you think of something once we're all done, just give us a yell here at the Center for Weight Loss Success. The email is success@cfws.com. Phone number 757-873-1880. All right, let's dive in. I'm going to switch the slides. All right, there we go. Okay, so fasting. Fasting isn't a new thing. It's been around forever, mainly because we were probably forced to fast because food was scarce. So it's been around literally forever. Unfortunately, or we can say fortunately, I guess, fortunately, food is not so scarce anymore. There's food just about everywhere. There's all kinds of food that's actually wasted. So the scarcity of food isn't there. Thousands of years ago, that wasn't so true. So fasting's been a pattern of eating literally forever, as time immemorial. So we'd eat when we had food, and then we fasted because we were forced to, because the food wasn't available. So it really comes down to is this a form of some type of fad diet, or are there any real health benefits that could it really help with weight loss? Now, when people hear fasting, they often think, what, starvation? This is a good weight loss plan. This is something good. So let's talk about that for a minute. Is fasting versus starvation. Both of them mean you're not eating. That is correct. But fasting and starvation are two different things. Starvation is I have no idea when my next meal is coming because there isn't anything available. Fasting is I know exactly what I'm going to have for my next meal or where it is. I'm just choosing to delay having it. Two different things. I have no idea when my next meal is coming. I know exactly. I'm just choosing to wait. Your body's response to those two things is very, very different. Okay? So fasting is not starvation. Although that's kind of something that almost goes through everybody's head, is that when they first hear that, what? Not eating, starvation? That's a good weight loss plan? Well, no, by itself is not, but it will work. Okay. Now, fasting came into vogue many years ago. This is, we've talked about it, relatively recently over the past few years. You've heard more and more about it, but fasting really came into vogue in the 1960s. Okay. So that it was actually fairly common for people to do this. Kind of very good, and part of it came from a well-known story at the time, and it was real, so it's not a made-up story or anything back. It was back in 1965 where a very overweight young Scotsman walked into his doctor's office, and the doctor weighed him. He weighed 456 pounds. And so the doctor kind of offhanded suggested to him, well, maybe you shouldn't eat for a few days. So he didn't. For 382 days. So the world record for fasting is 382 days. And during that time, he lost 276 pounds. And what he did is he drank water, took vitamins, and took in a little extra salt and potassium, a little extra minerals there. Okay? So electrolytes, if you want to call them that. So drank water, took some vitamins extra, and it was medically supervised. So it wasn't like he wasn't coming to see the doctor. It's like, no, it was actually medically supervised, and he did extremely well. And so he lost 276 pounds. So now he's fairly normal weight. Okay. And once he stopped, he decided, okay, it's time to stop. And during the next 5 years, only regained about 16 pounds. So it's not like all of a sudden he started eating and weight just went immediately back the other direction. So the point there being is that it can be done safely. And you can actually get significant weight loss, 276 pounds. That's significant. It took him 382 days, over a year. But it can actually be done safely. So think that it can't be done or shouldn't be done or anything like that isn't really true. All right, so now when you think about it though, isn't it just calorie restriction? Down to nothing, okay, but still, isn't that calorie restriction? So calorie restriction, as we do know, and this has been proven with multiple studies, if you just kind of cut back on calories to a certain level, if you cut back on calories to a certain level, your metabolism will definitely slow. Definitely. And they did these studies around, shortly after and around World War II. In that they did some starvation studies, but they also did some studies where they cut just calories way, way back. They cut calories way, way back, and they found that metabolism would slow down significantly. Some people it slowed down about 40%. Now, if you think about this, if all of a sudden you cut your calories in half, so you're at 2,500 calories, now you're taking 1,250 calories. Cut it in half. In theory, if you do the math, you should lose a heck of a lot of weight that way. Okay? And what they found is that people didn't lose nearly the amount of weight that they should have if it was just a simple math thing, calories in versus calories out. It didn't work that way. And what they found is that people were an incredible ability, if you just cut back on calories, that your body will adjust and slow your metabolism down. And some people can slow it down, maybe not quite 50%, but about 40%. And it makes it really hard to lose weight then if your body, I cut back way on my calories and my body slows metabolism way down to about 40% less than it was before. And then that doesn't work real well for weight loss. And actually most people that have tried losing weight, when they just cut calories back, find that this is fairly true. Initially, you lose weight fairly quickly, but then it seems to slow down significantly, and it keeps getting harder. What often we tell people, okay, we'll just cut back on calories further. And as we all know, it doesn't work all that well. So what's different about this? Okay, isn't this just calorie restriction? Well, the bottom line is it is different because fasting actually will increase metabolism. Now, inherently, that doesn't seem to make sense. You say, gee, if you cut your calories in half, you slow your metabolism way down. But now we're cutting calories by 100%, basically down to zero. So what happens then that's different? Okay, when we cut calories literally down to zero, that something different happens because metabolism actually does increase. So why does that happen? Okay, well, the first thing is that in calories cutting way back, your body sees it as an acute stress. And acute stress is different than chronic stress. Chronic stress, which is not a healthy thing, but chronic stress makes cortisol levels go up. Cortisol then tends to actually, is the chronic stress hormones that actually works against weight loss, as opposed to acute stress hormones. Acute stress hormones are norepinephrine and epinephrine, which adrenaline, noradrenaline is the common names for them. But what that actually does is that it boosts metabolism. And you kind of think of it this way, is that it's that fight or flight syndrome. Okay, fight or flight, meaning that, okay, a car's barreling down to me, I've got to jump out of the way. When you jump out of the way and you realize, okay, this car is barreling, I'm in a life-threatening position, I have got to get out of here, your metabolism goes up significantly, which is a survival benefit. for that time when the saber-toothed tiger was chasing around out on the, on the prairie somewhere. Okay. So kind of it is a survival benefit to bump up metabolism way up. Okay. That's fight or flight. Now with fasting, it isn't that dramatic. Okay, where it bumps your metabolism because, when you jump out of the way of the car, you are alive. Your metabolism has significantly gone up for a few seconds until you realize, hey, I'm okay. It's not that dramatic when we cut calories down to zero, but that's kind of what your body is seeing it as. It's seeing it as acute stress. Norepinephrine and epinephrine go up. You actually will increase your metabolism for a period of time. It also is one of the best ways to increase growth hormone. Growth hormone we talked about a few months ago, kind of in one of these webinars, but it basically is a hormone that will help you preserve lean body mass. It boosts your metabolism up. It kind of turns you into a fat burning machine. Okay? So growth hormone is a fat burning hormone, but also adrenaline and noradrenaline are kind of fat burning, helps mobilize fatty tissue as well, because both adrenaline and noradrenaline increase the hormone activity of hormone sensitive lipase, which lipase is fat mobilization. So growth hormone goes up, and it's actually one of the best ways. I'm going to digress here for a minute, because you'll often see in the papers or in little nobody reads the paper anymore, but I still do actually. But you'll see it sometimes advertised in papers, but in magazines that where, do it as like this actress did. You can increase your growth hormone. Here's this supplement you can take. You can bump your growth hormone up. And there is some truth to that. Okay, it tends to work best on people that don't need their growth hormone bumped up very well, because it works pretty well in young people. But young people have really good growth hormone. Okay, but fasting increases growth hormone the most. It can increase, hundreds of percent. A 24-hour fast can actually increase growth hormone 130% in women and about 200% in males. So it actually can bump up growth hormone significantly. Those are significant jumps up right there. Okay. Another thing that fasting does, it actually tends to decrease insulin levels. We talk about this all the time because it's low carb. It's low calorie as well as low carb because it's zero, right? Okay. So insulin levels go down significantly. Insulin is the hormone that turns on fat storage, and by doing it actually inhibits fat burning. So insulin is a hormone, can't live without, but you want to live the smallest number possible. So fasting decreases insulin, but it also improves insulin sensitivity. So for people that are very insulin resistant, fasting can actually work to help improve insulin sensitivity. So there's more than just less calories. Obviously it is less calories, but it's more that other things occur that metabolically can actually be very helpful for weight loss. Now, and I don't know if I have a slide on this, or I'm going to digress here again. You need to really think of as as fasting is a not eating plan. Fasting is a not eating plan. You still have to have a really good eating plan to go along with it. So fasting will not make up for a poor eating plan, or fasting won't make up for a bad weekend, or, I was really bad over the holidays. Now I'm going to start doing fasting because that'll make up for it. It's like, no, fasting will actually be a good adjunct to a good eating plan. It's a good adjunct to an overall health plan, but fasting by itself is not a weight loss plan. Fasting is a not eating plan. Keep that in mind. So recent review on fasting and just calorie restriction, kind of comparing the two things. So you have one group of people that did intermittent fasting, fast for periods of time, and then have normal eating, and another group of people that just cut the calories back. So that they were having the exact same number of calories, but doing it in two different ways. One was eating fairly normally and skipping that. And typically usually when they're doing studies like this, they'll eat normally 24 hours, and then the next 24 hours they're fasting. Normally 24 hours, next 24 hours of fasting, as opposed to just cutting back and eating less day to day to day. And a relatively short study, so it's no surprise that both of them had good weight loss. They were equally effective in decreasing body weight, but fasting was much more effective in retaining the lean body mass. And again, when we're losing weight, you want to preserve that lean body mass, keep metabolism higher. And that's very likely. That's that growth hormone thing, the increase in acute stress hormones. And so subsequently that helps you preserve lean body mass. That'd be a survival benefit. So, but overall, certainly the decreased calorie intake, we increase fat burning. When you increase fat burning, you're going to lose weight. Okay, but of the fasting, you tend to preserve lean body mass better. And then, as well as, can it be done long term? Well, I just gave you that example. World record is 382 days. So, if you think about it, we all fast. Okay, every single night we go to bed, we go to sleep, we fast, right? And then we get up and we may eat breakfast. So most people do fast for 10 hours or so, fairly routinely, maybe 12 hours, fairly routinely. And again, okay, so just everybody does. So world record, again, 382 days. So when people often ask me, what's the right period of time? How long should I fast? Well, there isn't a way for me to tell you how long you should fast. It really is playing with it and trying to figure out the best timing for you. I'm going to digress here again, kind of hopefully don't make this last all night. But anyway, I'm going to digress here again because this is a very, very important concept and a very, very important point in that one of the best things that I find with fasting is that it teaches you to tolerate hunger. It teaches everyone tolerate hunger. Often we kind of approach hunger as a life-threatening problem. Hunger is not a life-threatening problem. Hunger is just a sensation. That's all it is. It's a sensation. If we ignore hunger, typically if you're busy, you get distracted, you're doing something else, and you kind of ignore it. And subsequently then a little while later, it's like, I'm not hungry anymore. So hunger isn't one of those things that slowly escalates, keeps going higher, 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 higher. It's like, no, it comes in waves. You're hungry, and then you're not hungry. You may be hungry, and you're not hungry. So hunger is not a life-threatening problem. And if during fasting, if we learn to tolerate hunger and realize that it's not a life-threatening problem, is that it makes it much easier to do if you ever miss a meal. It's like, you miss a meal, your body goes on, and you might think, okay, who cares? I did fine. So it teaches hunger tolerance, which is a very important concept whenever we talk about a weight loss plan long term, is that hunger is actually okay. It is not a life-threatening problem. All right, let's get back into this. Okay, so now there are other potential health benefits. I do want to kind of hit on some of these. So there are, fasting really is somewhat of a natural response to illness. Because typically when we're ill, whatever illness we're talking about, typically you're not very hungry. It's like, I'm kind of, might be a hair nauseous, generally not hungry. So, fasting is actually a natural response to most illnesses. Okay? So it kind of, and Hippocrates knew this back, in the, before, BC, hundreds of years BC, is that what to eat when you are sick is to feed your illness. Another kind of Greek philosopher there, Plutarch, instead of using medicine, fast a day. So it's been around for a long period of time, and people realized health benefits of it for a long period of time. So it's not like, again, it's nothing new. But there are other health benefits that are there. And so I'm going to talk about a few of these things that we're just touching on, is that we're just starting to get a little bit of understanding of these things. So other health benefits. Could it actually help decrease, problems with cancer? Okay. Animal studies, okay, rats and breast cancer. Fasted animals lived longer. Fasting seems to protect the normal cells and somewhat starves cancer cells. Theoretically, it can help prevent cancers. Now, there isn't a good way to really study that, okay? Outside of, animals, there are ways to give them cancer, so whether it be genetic defects. So can actually fasting then prevent, it's taking a step further, but theoretically it can work, Okay, here's the theory, in that most tumor cells are glucose dependent, or many tumor cells, many types of cancers are glucose dependent, meaning that just like any other tissue in our body, the tumor or the cancer itself has to get energy. And it has to get energy from us, right? I mean, we've got to provide that energy to the tumor cells. Most of them, many of them, I should say most, many of them are actually glucose dependent. So when we're fasting, we are forcing our body to utilize fat as its energy. Okay. And if we're forcing our body to utilize fat as its energy, that means we've taken glucose away, and subsequently the glucose is also not available to the tumor cells. And if the tumor cells are truly dependent on glucose, whereas the rest of our body is not dependent on glucose, we can use fat very well. So if the tumor cell is dependent on glucose, then the tumor cells may not be able to get the energy it needs to survive, and the tumor cells can die. Where this potentially can work the best is before tumors can be detected. So we're talking at the cellular level, when a tumor cell first develops, and it's not a lump, it's not a big thing sitting there, it's literally a couple of cells size, that's it. That we take away the glucose fasting, okay? Basically, we'll utilize our own fatty tissue as our energy source, but we've taken away the energy source for the tumor cells, and that they would die. So the real question is that how long would it take for that to happen? I mean, because just to go a little further with that tumor thought, in that most tumors, by the time they're detected, if you have, whether it be brain tumor, breast cancer is much of the most common ones, once tumors are finally detected, they've been there for years. It's not like they just detect, a few weeks ago it happened. It's like, no, they've probably been there for years, and subsequently very, very slowly developed into something that could either be felt or seen on an x-ray, somehow found. But they've actually probably been there for years. So if we could actually find them, not necessarily even find them, but if we figure that at some point there are going to be cells that mutate in our body, may develop into a tumor. Subsequently, if we could actually utilize fasting to actually kill those cells before that actually turns into any type of lump, we could prevent cancers. Okay? And this is a very theoretical thing. So the real question is, and it's a very real theoretical thing. It's not like, gee, this is, malarkey. It's like, no, this actually can be very real. So the question is, how long should someone fast to actually, could you do that? Okay, well, in theory, fasting a week long could actually do this when we're talking about a few cells that actually could get knocked off. And if you keep, do that once a year or so, that you are actually fasting for an extended period of time, 7 to 10 days, then would you be fine with that? I know people thinking, what is that crazy? It's like, no, it actually isn't crazy. And then potentially it could actually prevent cancers. All right. Anyway, I digress enough then. All right. So in cancer, it actually, and it does help slow down cancers. It actually helps animals live longer that actually have cancers. So, and just longevity itself. You can get back on track here. Okay, longevity itself. Rodents, mice that fasted every other day, meaning they were fed their normal chow every other day. They were forced to fast. They lived a lot longer. They lived almost twice as long. And it's very likely that short fasts may be better than chronic daily kind of it decreases there. And when I say the mice basically were fed two different ways, kind of fed normally, three different ways, fed normally, then fed every other day, and then kind of cut back just their half amount each day. So, but they were fed every single day. And again, cutting back, that doesn't work nearly as well as actually having fasted and fed times. Brain health, basically fasting boosts neuronal autophagy. What does autophagy mean? Autophagy means we're eating, okay, the cellulars, some of the debris is being taken up, and subsequently then the dead cells can actually be more efficiently gotten rid of. And is this important? Well, actually it is, because it can actually help with increasing brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which helps regulate memory, learning, and just kind of overall cognitive function. So is it something that could help prevent dementia? Maybe. It also tends to increase ketones, which beta-hydroxybutyrate is one of the most neuroprotective molecules out there. Beta-hydroxybutyrate is a ketone, and it comes from a breakdown of fat. Okay, so it's kind of the brain. The brain can use fat and ketones very, very efficiently. So there are other health benefits. So people often have a lot of questions about fasting. Gee, if I'm fasting, is it okay to exercise? Okay. So, because we always talk about, gee, you ought to get, plenty of protein around your exercise, and eating protein, improving exercise benefits. So, is there a way that fasting could actually help? And again, maybe. Okay. So, what I tell people when they talk about, gee, if I'm fasting, should I exercise or not? What I tell them to do is, we'll start out slow. So, it's absolutely fine to exercise when you're fasting. It's just that you don't want to do your full workout. You might want to study how you tolerate this. When you're first getting started in fasting, trying it out, it's like, it doesn't mean you shouldn't exercise, but just be careful. Stop a little ahead of time. See how you do. Don't go full speed. Kind of go half speed. See how you do with all this. But there is good evidence that actually at some point, you'll probably be able to go full speed. Okay, I just don't start out initially that way. And there's also good evidence that people who actually live in ketosis, meaning that they're very low carb and they're kind of, your body's functioning more on ketones than glucose, they actually can perform better. But still, it isn't something that you just want to dive into. I'm going to do my full workout when I'm fasting. It's like, no, probably ought to just back off a little bit. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't do nothing. You should do nothing. It's like, no, you should actually continue exercising. And there is some really good potential benefits there long term. Because you're basically exercising under adverse conditions. That's what you're doing. And when we exercise under adverse conditions, over time, your body adapts. And actually, this is how we make fitness progress, is that if we can exercise under adverse conditions, whether it be I'm exercising harder, doing more reps, more heavier reps, or I'm changing the conditions that I'm exercising in. I'm in a non-fed state, fasting state, then we're kind of working under not ideal conditions. And we'll actually train that way. If you train that way, it can boost performance down the line. It typically won't boost performance right while you're doing it. So no, it's not that. It'll probably be harder for you. You won't be able to do as many reps. You'll be more tired. I can't go as long. And that's very real. And don't force it. But over time, you may find, hey, I can adapt to this. And it can help you long term down the line and actually boost performance long term. So how do you do it? Okay, well, everybody does it because we go to bed at night, right? Okay, so how do you do it? Well, you just extend it, so to speak. So it's kind of choosing a method. And often people want me to, well, how should I do it? And the answer is I don't know, because you have to play with it. You have to figure out what works best for you. So we'll talk about some of the common ways to do it. But the only way for it to work is to implement it. And literally anything you practice, you'll get better at. The first few times you work with fasting, you may find that, this is hard. And it is. I totally agree. It can be hard. But anything we practice will get easier. Again, 382 days, world record. It probably was really hard at the beginning. And over time, you probably found, hey, it's not hard at all. Just not eating. Who cares? Because hunger, again, I digress once more. Okay, hunger tends to fade away. Kind of fade away once we're those first couple of days. Hunger can be very difficult, but it tends to fade away. So the first few times you try fasting, you may find that, hey, it's hard, and you may break your fast. And my answer to that is, who cares? It's like, you did better than nothing. You tried, right? And so it's kind of utilizing this and slowly building on that. So implementation is the only way that any of this theoretical benefits can actually help. And again, extended fasting can occur. 382 days is the world record. I wouldn't recommend you shoot for that right away. Probably not a good idea. But if weight loss is your goal, probably utilizing short fasts can actually be very helpful. Very common one, actually we'll talk about different ones in a minute, but kind of actually doing it for a shorter period of time. You can do it for 48, 72 hours. Generally, these still kind of are under acute stress conditions. But again, at some point, acute stress turns into chronic stress. And chronic stress has never been good for a weight loss plan. So it's really different for any one individual. What works for one person may not work so well for the next person. Okay. But it still can be practiced. It still can be done literally indefinitely, and it will work. There's actually not a way for it not to work. Okay. But a couple rules do need to apply here. Okay. One, you need to get good sleep. Quality sleep. Sleep counts as fasting hours. So generally, if you're fasting, that's the easiest way to start. Is like, okay, not to mean to sleep longer. It just means, okay, skip a meal after you got up, or skip eating before you go to bed, which are probably good ideas anyway. Okay. Eat well. Again, fasting won't improve health without a good eating plan. Fasting is a not eating plan. You have to have a good eating plan. So no method of fasting is helpful besides possibly just a few less calories if you have a poor eating plan. And fasting is much, much easier to do on a low carbohydrate diet. Absolutely. High carbohydrate diets, you're going to be much hungrier. You're going to feel like, I'm starving. But even so, it can be done. There isn't something that, no reason you can't be done. It's just harder. So what are some of the common methods of fasting? And I know we're dragging on here, and I apologize, but still. One of the most common ones, what often referred to as a 16-8. If you think about it, any 24-hour day cycle is fasting for 16 hours and only eating during an 8-hour window. You'll sometimes hear people talking about what the window, their eating window. It's a certain length of time. So 16-8 means fasting 16 hours, and then they're eating during an 8-hour window. And that does not mean they're continuously eating during that 8-hour window. But that's the only time frame that they do eat. And they may have 2 meals. Potentially, I guess they could have 3 meals. But basically, you have a period of time of not eating, and then there's an eating window there. So during that 16-hour, you really push the fluids, push the water. There's an 8-hour window. Yep, you want to make sure you get your protein in. Okay. There's a common one, eat, stop, eat, basically just means stopping eating for a period of time. And it's usually the proponents of this typically do it for 24 hours. So there isn't any one day you're not eating. Okay. Meaning that they may do this twice a week or so, once or twice a week, but for 24 hours. So it may be from the evening of one day to the evening of the next day. And so they may do that twice a week and fast for 24 hours. You pick the time or when you want to, but then you break the fast, and you need to break, and this is true with any of these fasting methods. When you break the fast, it should be just as if you had eaten the whole time. It's not like you have to eat a great big meal. It's like, no, you want to break the fast relatively gently and have a normal meal, if not even a small meal, to get back started. If you've actually fasted for an extended period of time, a couple of days, you actually want to break it maybe with just a snack, and then can get back into your normal eating pattern. All right, so eat, stop, eat is basically not eating for 24 hours, but that does mean you eat each day. Okay. And it's not like you do it every single day. It's like, no, you may do that a couple days a week. Okay. 5-2, it's not a true fast. When it's a 5-2 diet, means you're eating relatively normally for 5 days, and then 2 days on a very low calorie, maybe like 400 or 500 calories. Okay. And you do it on 2 non-consecutive days. So maybe like 2 days of the week, I have only 500 calories. If you think about that, 2 days of the week, if you only 500 calories, you may be cutting your calories then a good 500,000 calories for the week. And by doing that, you can see significant weight loss over time. And you could still eat fairly normally then. Feast then fast is basically kind of having kind of a one large meal one time a day. Fast remain. It's not that dissimilar to the eat, stop, eat, except this is a daily thing. Okay. So they literally are doing this. This is the way they live, so to speak, is they have one large meal at, whenever it is they have that meal, and they fast for the remainder of the 24 hours. And they do that literally day, continuously. Alternate day fasting is probably the most common one used in research. They eat normally one day, fast the next day. So it could be actually about a 36-hour fast. Okay. And then they eat normally, fast now. And so they may do this 1 to 2 times a week. Okay. It's kind of, again, somewhat similar to that eat, stop, eat, but it just extends the fast to its a complete day. So it's when you finish eating, say that evening, and then you go the night and you fast completely the whole next another day till the following morning. And so it's about 36 hours or so that you're actually fasting there. Lots of different ways to do it. Some people do kind of literally that, I mentioned that 16-8. They may just narrow the window, 6 hours, which would be what, 18-6. Or it may just be 4 hours, 24. Okay. It's just a similar concept, just kind of narrowing the window. And lots of research shows, you'll eat less by doing that. You just have to adjust to it. All right, some questions, and I know I've dragged this on. I apologize for that, but it is something you talk about. I should break this up into multiple discussions, I guess. So, little questions and answer. Questions often here is, won't you lose lean body mass? Okay. Maybe. Okay, so it works best when you're already keto adapted, meaning you're already on a low carb diet and burning fat as energy. Your body's used to burning fat as energy. And if your body's used to burning fat as energy, it's much less likely to break down the lean body mass for an energy source. And again, if you're doing relatively short fasts, it actually boosts growth hormone and boosts norepinephrine, epinephrine, which actually helps preserve lean body mass. Exercise, I mentioned that earlier, it depends on your response. You just want to play with that. Light exercise may be better on your fasting days, but you do want to stay active. One of the problems that if you're fasting and you're doing nothing is you'll dwell on food. So you need to be doing things. You need to stay active. So maybe not your hardest workout, but still stay active. Keep doing things. How often should you do it? Depends on what we're talking about. And we have people that live, literally, they do that 16-8 every single day. Or can you do it kind of 1 or 2 days a week? Okay. Or could you actually try extended fasting? Play with it. Okay. The more you practice anything, the better you get at it. If you're fasting, should you take your vitamins? Okay. It somewhat depends. Nobody gets vitamin deficient in a day or two. So if you missed your vitamins, 1 day out of the week, is that going to be, you're going to be deficient? It's like, no, that's pretty darn unlikely. Okay. The flip side is that, but you can actually take them, but if it tends to upset your stomach, it doesn't sit well, then the answer is you just skip those days. Don't take your vitamins. Take them the other days. Okay. So there are certain people, though, that really shouldn't fast. Okay. People that are highly stressed, it won't work well for you. Overtraining, chronically poor sleep, the standard American diet, none of these things, fasting doesn't work well in there. Fasting works well with a good life plan. It doesn't work well with, a poor eating plan or a poor life plan. Who shouldn't fast? People that are underweight. It's probably a bad idea. Kind of some common sense here. Women that are pregnant, they probably shouldn't fast. Women are breastfeeding. And then also children that are growing. It's probably not a good idea to be fasting. That just comes some common sense, though, there. So different advantages. And I just list these out, and I'll be done here in just a minute. Okay. So advantages of fasting. It's immediately available to anybody. It's not like you have to get any equipment or you have to make a special run to the grocery store to get something. It's like, no, you do it or you don't. So it's immediately available to absolutely anyone. It's extremely simple. Simple doesn't mean easy. And it's extremely effective. There's absolutely no skill involved. and it will work. There's actually not a way for it not to work. Now, no, I say there's no skill involved. Practice does help, no doubt about that. It's absolutely free. It doesn't cost a darn thing. And actually, you'll save money because you're not buying groceries or buying anything else. Okay? So it's absolutely free. It can be done. Anyone can do it anywhere. It's convenient. It actually saves time. You don't have to, I don't have to make food. I don't have to clean up after myself. I don't have to go to the grocery store. I don't have to cook anything. It's like, no, it's actually saves you plenty of time. It's flexible. You can decide when you do it and when you don't do it. Nobody's going to know. It's extremely flexible. You can do it for how many hours or not so many hours. Okay? So you can add it to any diet. So there's not like, oh, you can't add it to whatever diet. So if you say, Dr. Clark, low carb diets, a bunch of malarkey, you ought to be on a high carb diet. It's like, okay, add fasting to that diet. Okay? So it can be added to any diet. Okay? There's not something that, no reason you can't. And it actually has unlimited power. You control this. You decide when you're going to do it and when you're not going to do it, how long you're going to do it, how often you're going to do it. You can go for as long as you feel up to it, as long as you feel well. And that's probably another point I want to make before we wind this completely down is if you're fasting and you feel terrible, break your fast. This isn't meant to be torturous. It isn't meant to be. It's like, no, this is going to be an adjunct to a health plan. It needs to be something I can do fairly routinely that I can actually, it shouldn't be a torturous thing. If you truly feel terrible, don't do it or break your fast. Break your fast. Who's going to know? You. That's it. Nobody else. You don't have to tell anybody. So again, don't use fasting as a self-punishment for bad eating or to make up for a poor diet. It doesn't work. For any individual, you have to determine how long to do it and how often to do it. No one can figure that out but you. So it's not like I can come in and tell you. I can tell you ways to do it, but you've got to do it and you've got to figure it out yourself. I will kind of just, what do I do? Okay, I do routinely fast. I've done it for years. And so what I do is I typically will, and it usually is a Wednesday just because it works for my schedule. And then I typically, when I'm done Tuesday, so typically this evening, okay, when I'm done Tuesday here and I have my dinner, when I finally get home, which is usually late anyway, and I finally get home, I'll actually have my meal and I won't eat again until Thursday morning. So I fast the entire, typically for about 36 hours then. Okay. And then I break my fast with a normal breakfast. Now, why did I choose that? Okay. I actually tried to do the 24 hours, like, okay, I won't eat any, Tuesday, and I'll go all the way till Wednesday evening. But what I found is that if I broke my fast on Wednesday evening, and the evenings are the hardest time. And so Wednesday evening, by that time I was, I'm thinking about, okay, gee, I'm going to break my fast. What am I going to eat? And I'll eat just about anything that's not nailed down. If I could just make it a couple more hours, go to bed, wake up in the morning, typically you're not hungry in the morning. I'm like that. I'm not hungry in the morning. So it's not like I'm going to eat everything that's not nailed down. It's like, no, if I just make it a couple more hours and then I'm not dwelling on, gee, my fast is almost over. It's like, oh, okay, I can make it through the night. And I get up and eat and I'm not really hungry and I'll have my normal breakfast then. So that works for me. That doesn't work for everyone. But it does work for me. And so I routinely do it. And I'm not religious about it. It's not like I do this every single week. It's like, no, I do it most weeks. But if I have something going on Wednesday or dinner to go to, a meeting, or I'm just not feeling as well, or I find that, I'm really hungry today, it's like, I'm going to probably have something to eat. And so it's, nobody knows. It's like, just besides who you decide to tell. So anyway, this is kind of what I do, but it doesn't make it right or wrong. But I do find it works, and it works fairly well. All right, so one of my top tips. Okay, I thought I was going to wind this down. I keep finding more slides. Okay, so here's some top tips for intermittent fasting. Drink plenty of water. You really want to push the water when you're fasting. Yeah, keep it next to you. Drink the water. You really want to stay hydrated. Stay busy. Again, if we're sitting around all day, you're going to dwell on being hungry. Ride out the hunger waves. It comes in waves. It doesn't escalate. It's like, no, you just distract yourself, go do something different. Don't tell people who aren't supportive of you that you're doing it. They'll look at you like you're crazy. They'll tell you that you're crazy. And try to avoid high stress times. Typically, if I know that, I've got all these things going on at the end of the week, I've got all these projects going, I've got to get this done, Aunt Sally's coming in, whatever it is, all these high stress times, it's like, okay, avoid it then. Don't do it then. It'll be much harder. But practice doing it. If you're looking at start practicing doing it and play with it. Because anything we practice, you will get better. I do encourage you, use a low carbohydrate diet between fasting periods. It makes it a lot easier. Don't binge after fasting. You want to break the fast gently. And then finally, and this is one of the most important concepts, is that fit fasting into your life. So don't change your life to fit fasting. Change your fasting schedule to fit your life, and so that it kind of fits in with what you're doing. And so don't try to make it, gee, I'm going to fast at all these inconvenient times for you. It's like, no, make it fit into your life. So don't change your life to fit fasting. Change your fasting to fit your schedule and what your life is doing. All right. One last slide, I think. Okay. Little food for thought here. Fasting for health. A little starvation can really do more for the average sick man than the best medicines and the best doctors. That was Mark Twain, 100 plus years ago, 150 years ago. All right. Don't see any questions up there. I covered all kinds of topics. We went all kinds of different directions with fasting, but it is something that is a very interesting topic. It doesn't cost anything. Anybody can do it. You can do it with any diet plan. You can do it as long as you want to. You just got to kind of figure out what works best for you. And it works. There's no doubt about it. It will work. There isn't a way for it not to work. All right. If you think of questions, just give us a yell here at the Center for Weight Loss Success. The email again, success@cfws.com. Phone number 757-873-1880. Should be stopping by, getting your body comp checked, harp on that all the time. Should be receiving the health tips and weekly recipes. Tune in each Tuesday, 6 o'clock for the next webinar. Watch your email for the invite and link. And remember, it's your life. Make it a healthy one. Have a good evening, everyone. Take care.